lákàsí ẹ bọ̀wọ̀ fófin àlàáfíà àyíká àti tìrìnà lójú pópó káwùjọ wa lè dùn wò kó rẹwà láti gbé fún tonílé tàlejò ká máa rántí pé awífúnni kó tó dání àgbà àjàkadì ní o ilé iṣẹ́ BCOS ló ń kí gbogbo wa nílọ̀ pé ìgbọràn sàn jẹbọ rírú.
9.5 Oluyole FM.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. What a beautiful day right here it is from us, the studios of Oluyole 98.5 FM. Oh boy, what a morning it is right here. Monday morning's edition of Sported Beats right here. Of course, the gospel of sports is ringing true and true right here from us. And I am Victor Pere, welcome you right here. And of course, we saw wonders yesterday across different eras, different sports events. We saw interesting things happen right there. And of course, we had something beautiful happen. Yes, he was a teenager, Jakub Mensik, the 9, Djokovic, 100 title in Miami. Marcus Rashford getting on the score sheet right there. And of course, a lot of people looking at the Matt Lee, owner of the likes of Sheffield and Woodland, to win the Austin Open right there in the world of golf. And of course, a beautiful thing is happening right there in the FA Cup. Napoli, Romelu Lukaku, the man who scored the goal that ensured that Napoli got the victory over AC Milan. And of course, a lot of people looking at the semi-final appearance in the FA Cup. Yes, of course, looking at the jubilations across the Tyneside, talking about Newcastle's home. And of course, it was quite something looking at how everything panned out between all the sides on their way to actually getting the job done. Of course, Matheus Cunha, realizing that the season is drawing towards an end, the man has come out with his own beat. He's hinting at an exit right there from Wolves. Guardiola with post-match comments. And of course, it's been incredible looking at Chelsea women, looking at what they have done. Also in the La Liga, there was some talking points. RB Leipzig doing something right there. And of course, a beautiful moments right here. So yes, I will talk about all the stories and more, as we start from the world of men's tennis, where we saw teenager Jakub Mensik. Yes, Mensik denied his childhood idol, Novak Djokovic, 100 ATP singles title with a superb performance to win the Miami Open. The lad is 19-year-old, and of course he is from the Czech Republic. He defeated Serbia's Djokovic 7-6, 7-4, 7-6, 7-4 on a sticky, humid night to clinch his first ATP Tour title. Well, for Djokovic, a 24-time Grand Slam champion, beg your pardon, he had actually been bidding to become just the third man in the Open era to win a 100 singles title. However, he will continue to wait for that. The 37-year-old, after that loss to Mensik, who was just 10 months old when Djokovic won his first title back in 2006. Look at how the story is. And of course, you're looking at Mensik. He's the 9th youngest Masters 1000 champion and the 3rd youngest in Miami, after Carlos Alcaraz and Rafael Nadal. And of course, you look at this boy, another rising star in the men's game, possessing a huge serve and a thumping backhand that's taken him inside the world's top 50. I mean, you look at the drama that ensued, you look at how it went down. And this boy was one who was training up a lot right there, talking about the records. He had 35 aces all through the competition down to the finale. was crazy scenes actually looking at how everything panned out right there. And of course, a lot of people look at what happened back in 2022, the Australian Open, when Djokovic invited the lad to practice with him when he was still a junior. And of course, Mensik said in his winner speech yesterday that Djokovic was the reason he was there. He also thanked those physiotherapists who treated him for a new injury that almost led to him withdrawing in the first round in Miami right there.
CG the Hitmaker.
And of course, we saw the fourth seed Djokovic warmly congratulating Mensik at the end of it all. And of course, you look at the rise for Mensik, broke into the top 100 back in February 2024 by reaching the Qatar Open final. And of course, in Miami, he beat 3 top 10 players in Djokovic, Britain's Jack Draper, and of course, American Taylor Fritz to lift the biggest title of his career. And of course, you look at how it's gone for him and how beautiful it's been, and you say it is actually lovely to have all the stories pouring about this lad. And of course, there will be more to come right there. So it seems, of course, still talking about the Open right there in Miami. We actually did see Sabalenka powering into a win over Jessica Pegula. Yes, the world #1 claimed her second title of the year, defeating Jessica Pegula by 7-5, 6-2 in the Miami Open Women's Final. We had 7 breaks of serve in a hard-fought first set, but then, of course, it swung the way of both players before the Belarusian won a game to love on Pegula's serve. And of course, looking at how the game went, it was quite frenetic, of course, all through the game. It was quite something. Remember, Sabalenka won the Brisbane International back in January, but had gone into the Miami Open final having lost the previous 2 finals, with defeats by American Madison Keys at the Australian Open and Miran River at Indian Wells 2 weeks ago. And of course, she talked about being speechless after, she beat the opponent she had also beaten in last year's US Open final. And of course, she says that she is super focused. Of course, she had to be playing point by point, and of course, it feels super special for her, and really, she is happy with the title. But of course, it was quite interesting looking at how all this went down right there in the city of Miami. And of course, there will be a lot more talking points as we watch on what will happen right there in the world of tennis. Anyways, to let you know also, before we leave there, that Daria Katakina has chosen to represent Australia instead of Russia. That's what it is right there. And of course, the update right here is that the Russian will switch allegiance after application for permanent residency was accepted. Well, of course, she has criticized Russia's LGBTQ plus rules and opposed the war in Ukraine, and she has been living in Dubai and has not returned to Russia in 2.5 years. And last month, she denied suggestions she has switched to Spanish nationality after a mix-up with the flag used next to her name at the WTA Tour Draw ceremony. I remember I brought the news right here to us. And of course, the world #12 was won 8 singles titles, wrote on social media. Australia is a place I love. It's incredibly welcoming and a place where I feel totally at home. Well, of course, we'll be looking at what comes next right there for her. But of course, it's nice to actually look forward to what comes from all the stars and all the scenes that comes from what they have been talking about. But then, of course, let's switch on and talk about the world of golf, because there's been some updates right there. Australia's Min Woo Lee has claimed his first PGA Tour win with victory at the Houston Open in a dramatic finish. He was leading by 3 points on 21 under from Scottish Scheffler and Gary Woodland when he actually put his tee shot into the water at the par 5 16th and carried a bogey. Woodland finished with an eagle and 2 birdies from his final 4 holes to equal the course record of 62 and set the clubhouse lead at 19 under. We had world #1 Scheffler playing in the penultimate group and had a chance to take a share of the lead on the 17th, but missed a putt for a 5th consecutive birdie. Yes, a 5th consecutive birdie actually cost him. He also ended on 19 under after a final round 63. But then Min Woo Lee, the Australian, needed a par on the 18th to secure victory and managed it, holding his nerve to actually card a 6-7 and finish 1 shot clear on 20 under. And of course, we had someone also producing an impressive run right there. Talking about Northern Ireland's Rory McIlroy, who produced an impressive 6 under par round of 64, which included an eagle, 6 birdies, and a bogey as he got to 15 under. And of course, to him, it was a good week, and he's hoping to complete a career Grand Slam by winning the Masters at Augusta next month. And as source says, he still feels like he's got some work to work on, got some things to work on. He says it's been a solid week overall for him, and it's nice to have another week to get ready and fine-tune his game for Augusta. Well, of course, we'll see how that one goes for the man. But of course, congratulations to Min Woo Lee, the Australian who's actually done his beat right here, winning his first PGA Tour. Well, what you have noticed is that he has won 3 times on the European Tour. So we'll see what comes for him right after that first one. Marcus Rashford, the lad that actually got goals yesterday, opened his account for Aston Villa finally. And of course, he answered the critics. And of course, you would say it's been good, but he's actually come up here on loan to Villa Park. He's done it right there under Unai Emery. And of course, it is time for him to get bubbling right there, the boy Marcus Rashford. All right, let's go on, pay these bills. And when we come back, we'll talk a lot more about what happened in the FA Cup all through the past weekend.
Olympians all over the world. Let's go! It's time to celebrate. Oluyole Baptist High School event is 80 years. Oluyole Baptist High School. 80 years of impacting lives. Oluyole Baptist High School. 80 years of academic and moral education. Oluyole Baptist High School. 80 years of building great leaders. Oluyole Baptist High School. Inspiring great future. Oluyole is 80. Olivet Baptist High School, Oyo State, is 80 years, and we are proud to celebrate. Join us as we continue this celebration from the 10th to 13th of April 2025. Venue, the school compound, Olivet Baptist High School, Oyo, where all the old students, chapters, both Lagos and diaspora, and the National Old Students Association will gather for this great event. Let us support our alma mater, both morally and financially, with our presence. It promises to be fun. You just can't miss.
Alright, thank you very much for sticking around with us right here. Spotted Bits are continuing, and of course we are right here singing the gospel sports into you yet drum. We're talking about the FA Cup, where we actually saw Marcus Rashford score a brace right there, open his account, and of course he was able to do some beautiful things. Well, of course, the lad, he showed us got wonderful stuff up his sleeve. Look at the number of assists right there for Villa. But right here in the FA Cup quarterfinals, he was able to deliver the goods and get goals in for them. And of course, it was 2 goals right there. You talk about how interesting it was for his family, his well wishes, everybody happy that this guy, finally, you don't score. Anyways, it was a fine victory for them, talking about that game. And of course, it is one they will relieve again and again. Aston Villa, as they ensure that they make their way into the final stages of the FA Cup right there in England. They really taking Preston North End, and of course that was away from home. Bournemouth, the Cherries welcomed Manchester City. They scored first after Helen brought Haaland and missed the penalty. Well, it was actually saved by Kepa Arrizabalaga. And of course, Manchester City contrived to return to winning ways right there. There's a rally late comeback, and it was beautiful to see. Well, one lad remained the most spoken name right there on the pitch. It came on the pitch, Riley the name, and now Guardiola is saying he has no choice but to ensure that this lad will be right there doing his beats in the semi-finals. Okay, we'll see what that means. But of course, it was a beautiful scenes actually all through the round when you talk about the Emirates FA Cup. I mean, What's not to like? We saw the sparkle right there. We saw all the beauty, and of course, this is the 7th consecutive time that we'll be seeing City getting on in there. They made the final right there, and of course, you talk about them doing it right there after looking to make their way to a 3rd consecutive final to face Nottingham Forest at Wembley. And of course, you talk about the fact that they have been 7-time winners, and it will be quite interesting. Well, of course, talking about the draws, it's been quite incredible looking at the runs right there from each of those guys. But let's look at the draws as we speak. Nottingham Forest, like I told you just now, will take on Manchester City at the Wembley Stadium in the FA Cup semi-finals. City last won the trophy in 2023. They have booked their last spot after coming from behind to beat Bournemouth, like I told you earlier on. Aston Villa, I told you, dispatched the only remaining championship side, Preston North End by 3-0, and they have been drawn against Crystal Palace, another Premier League side who defeated another Premier League side, Fulham, and they did it convincingly in the quarterfinals. Well, this is Nottingham Forest, very first FA Cup semi-final since 1991, and they did it by overcoming Brighton in a penalty shootout. Well, aside from 2023 winners Manchester City amongst the last 4, Nottingham Forest are the most recent FA Cup winners left right here in this competition. They won it last in 1959. Crystal Palace are bidding to win their maiden FA Cup title, and of course it will be quite interesting to see how those runs go. But then the games will take place on the weekend of Saturday, 26th of April. Yeah, between that time, I will see how that one goes all the way. But then that's how it is. And of course, we'll talk more about all of it right there. But let's give you this little bit. The weekend, 26th, our 27th are the days that we'll be seeing right there. And of course, you'll be looking at, how we have seen the finals go down. Aston Villa have been beaten as finalists twice since they tasted success for a 7th time back in 1957. Crystal Palace have twice lost in the showpiece and never won the cup, and that's how it is right there. Well, to remind people of what it is, that the most FA Cup wins: Arsenal with 14, Manchester United with 13, Chelsea with 8, Liverpool with 8, Tottenham Hotspur with 8, Manchester City with 7, Aston Villa with 7. That's how it is right there for each and every of those guys. All right, let's move on a bit away from there. Let's talk about what we called right there from action over the course of the weekend. There was a lot yesterday. Let's go on to the La Liga, where Eletiofe lost to Villarreal by 2-1 right at their own home. Robert Lewandowski scored a brace, and yes, they got on to winning ways. Ferran Torres also scored as they defeated Girona 4-1. And Barcelona look like they want to keep on the hunting and of course get to win the title right there. And of course, talking about Bilbao Athletic Club, Bilbao, they played a goalless draw with Osasuna. Valencia won 1-0 against Mallorca. And in case you saw the GOAT Anthony Trent right there, it was the Seville derby that wrapped up the day in the La Liga. But it was Real Betis who won. And a lot of people talked about the influence and the impact of Anthony, the man who was on the books of Manchester United before making the move down to Real Betis to find his, good boots. And there it is. A lot of people talking about how this guy has had a change in fortune since leaving Manchester United for Real Betis. Okay, we'll see what happens at the ending of the season. But Isco, amongst others, said it looks like they will actually open a GoFundMe to get Anthony permanently secure for Real Betis. Okay, we'll see how that one goes. In the Serie A, I'm right there with my gelato. We have Cagliari, who defeated Monza by 3-0. Fiorentina 1-0, the victory over Atalanta. And yes, Atalanta looks like they cannot win the Serie A this season with that run of form. Alright, Inter Milan 2-1. They won against Udinese. And of course, you talk about incredible it is as they keep on marching their way to grab the title. But Napoli also won the claim, and that is why you would see a lot of people are screaming the name Bolingoli. Romelu Lukaku, the man who scored right there And of course, Napoli scored 2 early goals to ensure that they got a 2-1 victory over Milan, who scored late, but it was just a consolation. Over in Germany, we have Freiburg, who were defeated 2-1 by Hertha Berlin right at their home yard. We had Dortmund win by 3-1 against Mainz. And of course, in the Ligue 1, we had Brest defeat Toulouse right there by 4-2. Yes, Brest defeated Toulouse, and they were fortunate to get that victory. Angers lost by 3-0 against Rennes. And of course, Angers will be actually scratching their heads right at that one. They actually won 3-2 against Nantes. Auxerre defeated Montpellier, and Lille in the Derby de Merde, they defeated Lens by 1-0. That's how it panned out all through yesterday. Now let's go on to today's fixtures because we have them right in front of us. At 8 p.m. today in the La Liga is Celta Vigo against La Palmas. And at 5:30 the City High is Hellas Verona against Parma. We have Lazio at 7:45 against Torino. That's how it is right there for each and every of the sides. I'll be waiting to see how it all goes down right there for them. Yes, that's how it is. And of course, we'll move on to all the things right about now because we have right here a story about Sam Kerr. Yes, he will remain as Australia captain after the Country's Football Association ruled out any further disciplinary action following the player's court case. Well, last month, she was actually found not guilty of causing racially aggravated harassment after calling a Metropolitan police officer stupid and white in an incident in Twickenham on the 30th of January 2023. And of course, in a joint statement with Football Australia, after meeting members of the organization's board, the 31-year-old expressed her sincere regrets for how events unfolded. Football Australia said it had concluded that professional and sincere acceptance of responsibility, as well as acknowledgement of the far-reaching implications of on and off-field actions, warranted no further action. That's how it is right there. And of course, we're waiting to see what happens with further developments. Alright, let's talk about this one as we talk about football. RB Leipzig, they have actually sacked their head coach Marco Rose after their 1-0 Bundesliga defeat by Borussia Mönchengladbach, and they have actually gone for Oluyole as their interim boss. The 48-year-old Marco Rose departs after 2.5 years with Leipzig, who are presently 6th in the Bundesliga table, and Oluyole works as Thomas Tuchel's assistant back in Chelsea, Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain, and he will be replacing Marco Rose until the end of the season. Now, Leipzig have won just 3 of their past 11 Bundesliga games, and they are only 3 points below the Champions League qualification places with just 7 matches remaining. They are also in the semi-finals of the German Cup, and they will play on Wednesday against Stuttgart. Remember that Jurgen Klopp is the man currently, working as the head of global soccer for the Red Bull Group, and of course, it's been quite incredible looking at that run, and now it's been right there for them. Alright, let's talk about some transfer gossip stories. Some rumors have been making the rounds, so let's serve you some of them. Well, Matheus Cunha, the Brazilian striker, 25 years of age, says he has rebuffed offers to leave Wolves in the winter window, but has told the club he needs to take the next step right there in his career, as he wants to fight for titles and do big things right there. Arsenal could be a possible destination for him. He has a £62.5 million release clause, and we know that the new Ghana sporting director Andre Berta helped sign the forward for Atletico Madrid in 2021, and of course they say that Ajax are interested in getting Christian Eriksen again. Well, we'll see what would happen. Manchester United have advantage in the race for Ugo Ekitike, and of course it will be interesting. But then we got some sad news over the course of the week. There was a Nigerian boxer who was right there doing his beats in Ghana, and of course right there in the ring while he was on. The boxing world went in mourning as the former national and West African light heavyweight champion Segun Success Olaniwaju died after collapsing during a fight in Ghana. Such sad news, and we hope that God grants his family and the entire boxing world the fortitude to bear this loss. This comes just days after the caught wind of information that a popular boxer in Ibadan, Adebest, also passed on after some illness. Alright, to wrap up with this one, there was some drama yesterday as we saw Lobby Stars players attacked during training by coaches. Some of them were locked in the team bus, the team officials were untouched, some senior players were threatened with death right there in Makurdi, and they say that some of them mentioned that it was due to their poor performance in recent times. Alright, this is where we draw the curtains this morning on Sports City Beats. Thank you very much for doing this with me. I am Victor Pone. Have a swell Monday.
Ojúmọ́ bá ti mọ́ ọ̀yẹ́ máa ń la oòrùn ọ̀yẹ́ tó la lónìí o ọ̀yẹ́ ire ni ẹ̀kú ojúmọ́ lọ́dẹ̀ẹ̀dẹ̀ yìí o ojúmọ́ aláyọ̀ lèmi o ìròyìn lẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́ màlá tó ti gbé dé Eletiofe ìròyìn tó gbajúgbajà ìròyìn